its time come? New pressure to finally scrap the faltering child support agency. Good morning, this is the News Hour on GMTV.
Yes, it's 6 o'clock on Monday the 16th of January.
On the programme this morning, £3 billion of uncollected payments, a third of a million families in the dark over maintenance. Now the CSA's boss is due to report to the Prime Minister himself. How much longer can the hated agency last? Text us your views, 81189, email us gm.tv. More in a moment. And actually, even if you've got good... there must be somebody out there who's got a good experience with the child support
We've waited
agency.
long enough to find them.
I know, I'm just wondering. Just yeah. Please text us.
Yeah. Be quite a break to a major news story, actually.
It probably would.
We'll also be exploring the devastating impact of callous crime when we speak exclusively to a man left in a coma after he tried to stop a group of teenagers throwing stones at his car.
And overwhelmed with debt, is your Christmas spending finally catching up with you?
This is the week of reckoning, when the big bills come through the door. Even the helplines have crashed because so many people have wondered what to do about Christmas debt. So join us in half an hour. We'll give you some good advice on what to do about all these bills.
And then the Inland Revenue give you that Christmas present of saying you've got to pay your tax bill by January the 31st. I like that bit.
Absolutely. Shall we find out what the weather's doing?
Hello, good morning. Well, wet and windy today. Bands of cloud and rain moving from west to east. It's not raining now, will be later. The heaviest rain always in the west. Some light and patchy bits and pieces coming in across the more central and eastern areas. The wind's coming up from a southerly direction, very windy indeed. And in fact, the worst conditions always across Northern Ireland and western Scotland as these areas of cloud and rain sweep in. That's the forecast. Temperatures generally not too bad at all. I'll give you more details in around 25 minutes. Penny.
Thanks very much. Today's top story. There's more evidence that the government agencies set up to ensure children of ex-couples are properly provided for is failing them on a huge scale. New figures suggest that the amount of money that the Child Support Agency has not collected from absentee parents has trebled in the last 9 years. But the agency's fate could finally be sealed very soon. Rachel Harrison's at Westminster. Rachel.
Yes, good morning, Penny. I think the CSA is probably one of the most hated government agencies. If you think about it, it was set up in 1993, it was due to be scrapped in 1998, and here we are at the beginning of January 2006, and we're still talking about the problems. But it does appear that an imminent report could be the final nail in the coffin. It was actually commissioned and set up by the man who runs the CSA, the Chief Executive, Stephen Geckerty, and it's due to land on Tony Blair's desk. And all the rumours and speculation show that he's calling for the CSA to be scrapped. And this comes as new figures have been released that show that £3.3 billion still haven't got to the families that need it most, and out of that, £2 billion has actually been effectively written off. It's unlikely to ever be recovered. Now, the Liberal Democrats are pushing hard on this issue. For the first time, there will be a Commons debate on the CSA tomorrow. They'll be asking the government just what's gone wrong and what are the solutions, because I stand here today, 300,000 people still haven't had their claims processed, and at the moment only 20% of the people are actually receiving the sort of service they should have from the CSA. That's 40% off the government's own target that it set for March 2006. So if you're a mother at home waiting for a cheque to come through the door, you may still have to wait, but it appears that change could be on the way.
Rachel, thanks very much.
Let's catch up on the rest of the news. Here's Amanda.
John, thank you. Good morning. There's mounting pressure on the Education Secretary, Ruth Kelly, today after more reports at the weekend that convicted sex offenders are working in schools. And we'll have more on that story later in the programme. Now, we've had our fun and we've got to pay for it. When your post arrives today, it's more than likely to include dreaded credit card bills from all that Christmas expenditure. And already a record number of us are asking for help to cope with our debt. Well, Sue Jameson is at the Consumer Credit Counselling Service in West London. Sue, good morning to you. They're struggling to cope with a number of calls there, aren't they?
Oh, they certainly are. They're very busy. In fact, they're probably having several hundred more calls a day than they were having this time last year. And in fact, they're only able to answer around 80% of them. And it's not just here they're having those problems. Also, the national debt line, similar problems. 2/3 of their calls are going unanswered. And just to give you an idea of the sort of volume we're talking about, since January the 3rd, they have had 12,000 calls to deal with. So not surprisingly, they're swamped, as is the Citizens Advice Bureau. Now, the advice from all these organisations is when the bills come through the door, we're all going to get them, prioritise them, sort them out, and anything to do with your house you should pay first, because obviously that's one of the most important things. Don't, however, be tempted to borrow more money to pay off these bills, but the best advice really is to call a free service like this one. Even though we know that the switchboards are being swamped, you can still get through eventually, and that's going to be your best bet.
Sue, many thanks for that. Detectives have released CCTV images of the last few moments before the murder of the solicitor Tom Avery-Price. The 31-year-old was stabbed just yards from his home in northwest London as he returned from a night out with friends. The pictures show him walking through Kensal Green Tube Station. Thousands of nurses are to protest over pay cuts. The Royal College of Nursing wants staff to send postcards to the Chancellor Gordon Brown saying no to his proposed 2% pay rise. They say the rise fails to take into account the cost of living and is effectively a pay cut. Scientists are hoping to find clues as to how the solar system formed following the return of a NASA space capsule after a 7-year mission. In space, the capsule gathered particles from comets as it flew past. Experts will now study the samples, which are thought to be leftovers from the birth of the solar system about 4.5 billion years ago. Now, more of us are going under the knife in the quest for physical perfection. Last year, the number of people having cosmetic surgery increased by 1/3, and that's men and women. Here's Sarah Gatenby.
For celebrities like Sharon Osbourne, the benefits of cosmetic surgery speak for themselves. For others, the outcome isn't always pretty. Love it or hate it, the British Association of Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons carried out 22,000 procedures last year.
I think people know a lot more about what plastic surgery can achieve for them, partly because the media has plastic surgery on lots of programs these days, as well as a great deal of availability of information on the internet.
The number of men seeking physical enhancement may have doubled, but it's women who still account for 90% of all procedures. In our search for something more permanent than makeup to hide the wrinkles, face, eye and brow lifts are all on the increase.
The top procedure for women remains the breast enlargement, with the number of boob jobs increasing by 51%. For men, it was the nose job, with figures rising almost 60%. The worst sort of job is a botch job, and the best way to avoid that, say experts, is to use a reputable surgeon.
Sarah Gatenby reporting there. The time is now 6:07. I'm back at 5:30. Here's John and Penny.
Thanks very much. I'm waiting for plastic surgery when they put on rubber gloves and just go like that and then just press it gently and it stays there.
Don't need anything.
Wouldn't that be
of the
lovely?
kind. You don't need anything of the kind. Let's have a look at the morning
and now you
papers.
put your glasses on, then you check again.
I do, yeah. New eyes, please. Let's have a look at the papers. The Guardian talks about Iran threatening that if there are economic sanctions against that country, then oil prices will rise. Daily Telegraph has an interesting story saying that Mr. Blair is considering allowing petty criminals to avoid court altogether and have them dealt with by prosecutors and the police.
And the other picture about the fact that we're about to have a drought and we're all going to have hosepipe bans.
Fantastic. That's why it's going to rain all week. £1 billion hospitals faces collapse. That's again talk amongst ministers of actually postponing plans to build those hospitals. And in the Independent, interesting story about a scientist claiming anyway that climate change is already insoluble and life on Earth will never ever be the same again.
The Daily Mail continues that story about Ruth Kelly, the Education Secretary. 9 sex offenders beat the system, and they're the ones we know of so far, Miss Kelly. The Daily Mirror has this exclusive here. We set up a kids' charity using the name of one of Britain's vilest paedophiles. What did the government say? No problem. They did no checks, allegedly, the Charity Commission. The Daily Express. A miracle diet which halts ageing. John.
So you can stay 25.
Stay 25 forever and ever and ever, or 37 in my case. Yes, it's...
That's what she's been on.
And do you know what? Do you know what the weird thing is? That is the diet I've done for about goodness knows how long. It's lots of carbohydrates, lots of fibre, and just a very little bit of fish and meat.
I should point out it stops you looking old, doesn't stop you getting old.
Well, no, there's nothing that can actually stop the ageing process, but it can actually stop... Well, I suppose it could stop your liver getting, you know, sort of accelerating the ageing process of your liver. We could actually spend 20 minutes on this.
Consider this being a series, yeah.
Yes, exactly. The Daily Star, John Richie Rich, saying that the Coronation Street star who won that Soap Star Superstar is now going to be, he's going to quit TV and become a singer. And The Sun, win it and we forgive. Only Cup glory can save sneaky Sven, which you're going to talk about now, John.
We are indeed. Have a look at the back page this morning. You'll see Sven... all over every single one of them. That's the back page of the Daily Mail. After a whole host of indiscretions exposed by the News of the World newspaper, he spent the weekend apparently trying to explain himself to his players, including David Beckham, who he claimed was ready to leave Real Madrid.
Obviously, we want to get Beckham, no matter what, we want him. And the whole world wants him, I know, but if he's interested and Sven is there, we think we can get him.
Oh yeah, I think that Sven would be the major part of the whole operation in relation to getting.
So we need some kind of indication from the inside. We've got no whatsoever, we've got no connection, so we're relying on you to give some inside information. I get some indicated great. Yeah.
Well, joining us now to discuss all that, Brian will know, Chief Sports Writer for the Daily Star newspaper. As you well know, as everyone knows, talk about him maybe going to take over Aston Villa, maybe he's persuading Becks to come to play in this country. A whole host of indiscretions, all hypothetical, it should be stressed. But what does it tell us about Sven?
That he's greedy, a schemer, and he thinks only of himself, probably. That I think if this wasn't World Cup year, then he'd probably have gone yesterday, because enough is enough, I think, and the FA realised that. The one thing that comes out of this is that he won't be here next season, that's for sure. They'll start looking for a new manager and probably have that guy in place before the World Cup starts in June.
He says he was stitched up, really.
Well, he was stitched up, but we know it was a stitch up, and the News of the World have done these things before, haven't they? But it wasn't the News of the World that introduced buying Aston Villa into the conversation. It wasn't the News of the World that said, I can get David Beckham for you, that Michael Owen only went to Newcastle for the money.
And what was he doing then in the first place?
But also, why also take a lawyer to Dubai with you, you know? So clearly he went there to exploit an avenue of work, to see how the land lied. And I think there's another piece in the conversation where he says, Athol Still, his business advisor, says, you'll have to start talking at £5 million. So it all adds up to Sven thinking, you know, a lot of money to be made here, let's go and see. It is treachery, and we've been down this road so many times before with him, and it seems that before every major tournament that he qualifies for, he introduces some kind of controversy. But as I say, if they sacked him and brought somebody else in now, it would only add to the problems. I think the biggest thing he has to do, John, is repair the dressing room. You know, that if you start talking about things inside the dressing room, which has always been his strength, they've always respected him, and the spirit's always been great. Once you break that, that's why I spent yesterday and Saturday evening on the telephone talking to Beckham, Owen, Ferdinand, Wayne Rooney and people like that. And time will tell whether they're still on his side. I expect they will be, because everyone thinks that England can win this World Cup, and the players won't want to spoil that. But I suspect they look at him slightly differently now.
Someone else possibly in trouble, Alex Ferguson. We'll skate over the famous victory of Manchester City over his team, but his rant against the referee and Wayne Rooney's rant too, that could land him in trouble too.
Yes, I think so. If you're Fergie, you can't behave like that. I think it was a couple of seasons ago at Newcastle when he received a touchline ban of 2 matches and a £10,000 fine. And here he is again, allegedly in the tunnel, threatening a top referee, Steve Bennett, saying you'll need a police escort after the game, and you can't behave like that. And he's the top, so that's, and others take note from him. So, you know, come on, Fergie, and I think the FA will come down hard on him this time.
Just a quick word about a great controversy at Sunderland yesterday. They gave Chelsea a good run for their money, and Robin scored the winning goal. But after we'd seen that goal, let's forget the goal for a minute. Let's just have a look at the incident which got him sent off, because he ran into the crowd. In my view, he didn't have much option but to run into the crowd. He was running that quickly. Well, and for this, with his own celebrating with his own fans, he's sent off. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's an absolute joke, and we're now getting sent off for joy and celebrating. In the rules, it said you can receive a yellow card for aggravating opposing fans. Well, that was with his own supporters, and it was it was a fortunate goal, but it was a good moment for Chelsea, good moment for Arjen Robben, and the referee played it right by the rule book and sent him off. Naivety by the referee, and a great shame for football, really, because you don't want headlines like that. It was a happy moment for the Dutchman, wasn't it?
It was indeed. Brian, thanks very much indeed for being with us. I know you've had a late night. Good of you to get up and talk to us. We'll see you again soon.
2:30 in the morning, I say you got to bed?
Yes, it was. It was a football dinner, though.
And I'm going back to bed.
Yeah, quite rightly too.
You're watching the News Hour on GMTV. This morning's headlines. 1/3 single-parent families are still waiting for their cases to be investigated by the CSA. New figures suggest it will have to write off £2 billion in uncollected maintenance.
As Christmas credit card bills arrive, a record number of us are calling helplines for advice on debt.
And it's not just the celebrities who are having cosmetic surgery. More than 20,000 of us went under the knife last year, and that was men as well as women. Time is almost 6:15. It seems that almost every day now there is more evidence pointing to just how commonplace acts of extreme violence are in Britain today. At the weekend, police released pictures of a lawyer at a train station in London just minutes before an attack which killed him. Thomas Price was just 31 and due to be married. Well, last Thursday, 16-year-old Michael Kuba from Salford in Greater Manchester was sentenced to 12 months detention for punching Phil Carroll after he gave chase to a group of youths who'd been throwing stones at his car. Well, Phil and his wife Jean join us now. Good morning. Now, you live in a gated area, don't you? And this happened last May.
Yeah.
And it was a gated area and some drunken yobs came in, is that right?
That's right, yes. Yeah.
And then what happened? You just shouted at them?
Well, I don't remember. It's been took away what they've done out of my memory. But what I've been told is that I did approach them for throwing bottles and rocks at my car, and one lad who I thought had done it, I was questioning him when I was attacked from another angle by the
16-year-old who turned out to be this Cuba bloke.
Yeah.
And he hit you so hard that you went down, and then you were left in a coma.
That's right, I was. Yeah.
So this is the point at which you come into this story, Jean. So you went out because you heard the altercation, I assume. Is that what happened?
Well, somebody came to the door and told me that something had happened, yeah, and I went out.
And he was rushed off to hospital?
He was, yeah, and he went into a coma then, and was in for almost 3 weeks, yeah.
You must have been frantic with worry.
He was, yeah. It was really scary for a long time. Yeah.
And so what's happened to you? You said that you've lost some of your memory.
Short-term memory. I can't remember what I'd done yesterday, and I certainly don't remember what I'd done years ago. I don't remember getting married. I don't remember bringing up my children. It's all been took away from me.
And this is your two daughters who...
Two daughters and my 2 sons.
And your 2 sons.
Yeah.
I think you've got 2 daughters who live at home with you.
They're still living at home, yes.
So how's it affected them?
Oh, you know, a lot, really. I mean, it's just not the same dad that, you know, they had before this happened to him, you know.
How's he changed?
Everything. A lot of things have changed. His personality is totally different. He's a lot more bad-tempered than he was before. You know, he's getting better. He's not as bad as he was, but you know, when he first came home, you couldn't look at him. You know, he'd get really angry over the slightest little thing.
And I know that you don't like going out very far away from home, and even coming down to London is actually a fairly big deal for you now, whereas before, of course, it wasn't. And you were project manager, I think, before, weren't you? So, and you can't work in that anymore because of your memory problem. Now, the parents of this 16-year-old who got a 12-month sentence says he's a talented athlete who'd got in with the wrong crowd. They're a religious family and they're devastated by what's happened. They're very sorry and hope that in time you can forgive him. Can you?
No. Well, from what we've seen, the pictures in the paper, and he doesn't look like someone that's sorry for what he did, you know. If he was genuinely sorry, he wouldn't be doing the things, you know, that we've seen on the television and in the papers, the pictures, you know. And
what do you think about
television the other day, and he's sticking his fingers up and he tapped the cameraman and everything. So it's not somebody who's...
So you don't think he's sorry? And what do you think of the 12-month sentence?
I think it's ridiculous what they got 12 months, because we've got, I mean, it's been 8 months since my attack, and we've still got a long way to go before I can get anywhere near ready.
Yes, I mean, people talk in general, don't they, about the fact that it's a life sentence for you, which it certainly seems like. But well, Phil and Jean, thank you both very much for coming in. Thank you very much for telling us your story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
OK, I'd like to know what you guys think about that as well. Text us at the usual place, 81189. Time now for a break. In a few moments, is the hated child support agency coming close to being scrapped?
And we'd have advice on what to do if you're having problems with the Christmas credit card bill.
Indigestion? Rennie works fast to help neutralize excess stomach acid. Rennie, fast, effective relief from indigestion.
It makes sense to keep things simple. money included. That's why we've set up stakeholder saving. For a simple way to start saving, go to stakeholdersaving.gov.uk.
Completely confused by multivitamins? Synatogen Gold contains all the important vitamins and minerals. Synatogen Gold. It makes complete sense.
The best way to say goodbye to weight you don't want is with a calorie-controlled diet.
Adios.
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 But there's a natural herbal remedy that's been traditionally used to help. Try Adios for yourself. What have you got to lose?
One bottle of Buttercup sitting on your shelf. One bottle of Buttercup sitting on your shelf. And because one bottle of Buttercup treats any type of cough,
you'll only need one bottle of Buttercup sitting on your shelf.
Buttercup, one bottle that's tough enough for any type of cough.
Welcome back to the news. Our time now, 6:20. Child support debt in this country has trebled under Labour, a damning report reveals today. The amount of outstanding child maintenance, which the troubled CSA has failed to collect, now stands at £3.3 billion, leaving many single parents even more in the red. The Liberal Democrats have secured a House of Commons debate on this crisis after making their report's findings available to GMTV. In a moment, I'll be talking to Alison Davis, who's owed thousands and has just won a right to appeal against an earlier judgment regarding the CSA, and her case has been going on for some 8 years, as I understand it. But first, Lib Dem, a Member of Parliament, David Laws, joins me now. You've come up with this figure, and you've come up with this report, £3.3 billion that they failed to collect. That's £3 billion owed to people like Alison and owed to children who need this money. How the hell has this been allowed to happen?
Well, it's almost unbelievable, isn't it? Because the Child Support Agency has been a disaster ever since it started in 1993. And when we got the new government come in 1997, the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, promised that the Child Support Agency would be reformed. And yet it's over that period of time that the figures that you mentioned have amassed. They've gone up from £1.1 billion to £3.3 billion. And the problem here is that the Child Support Agency has simply not been effective. It doesn't make the assessments of the money people owe as quickly. And it then doesn't actually go out and enforce those assessments.
As Alison knows, up in Cheshire, knows to her cost. Now, I'm not going to go into all the detail of your case, Alison, because it's been going on for 8 years now, but in a sentence or two, give us the basis of your case against the CSA.
I applied to the CSA for maintenance on behalf of my children. I gave them all my details, and then I gave them my ex-partner's details, and he had 2 forms of income, which I told the CSA he had. They failed to check out his income and kept giving me nil assessments, i.e. I wasn't owed any money.
Right, and when in fact you clearly were. This has been going on for some 8 years now. You've got, is it 3 children? I can't remember, 4.
No, 3 children,
yeah.
And yes, it's been going on for 8 years.
And how have you survived then, without this money which you are due?
Well, I've had family support, but if I hadn't had family support, we'd have been in dire straits.
I can well imagine. What do you think should be done about the CSA?
Well, I think they're appalling. I think their behaviour is arrogant towards us parents who have care. I think they should get their assessments correct. They have the ways to do it. They have the powers of Parliament to go and find out all the information they need.
And will you pursue them in the courts, as you've been given the right to?
Yes, I hope to. I think the more people that battle them, the lawyers now are beginning to take on cases and get results. I believe the tide is turning for the CSA.
Well, that's your battle, and we wish you well. David, I'm going to say to you, you're suggesting that the powers of the CSA, well, you're suggesting the CSA be scrapped and its job handed over to the Inland Revenue, but what evidence is there that the Inland Revenue could do it any better?
Well, they do it a lot better in many other countries, because lots of countries have child support agencies, often in the revenue, and their collection rates are far better than in this country. And one of the problems is that often the child support agency doesn't find out the information about the absent parent's income. Now, the Inland Revenue already has a lot of that information because it has to collect it to take tax off us. So it makes far more sense to have that collection in one agency rather than to split the information into two.
But could anything be done about people like Alison? I mean, £3.3 billion of money, they're not going to recover that, are they? Because some of these people are probably dead now, or left the country, or untraceable.
Well, that's the problem. You know, I had one of these cases in my own constituency advice centre the other day, and the Child Support Agency had allowed thousands of pounds to accrue over a period of time that somebody owed. And because their income was so low, that person was going to have to pay it off over 15 or 20 years, by which time the children have left the house. So this really can't be allowed to continue, and we need fundamental reform from the government. They've promised us a statement later on this month. We can't have any more patching up of a system that doesn't work.
Well, the guy who runs the agency apparently is presenting Tony Blair with a report maybe sometime this week, and there's an indication that even he is going to say that the CSA should be scrapped. But what good that will do people like Alison, I'm not quite sure. Alison, I know you're going to talk a little bit later in the programme, but for the meantime, thanks very much indeed for being with us, and all the very best with your particular case. David, thank you very much to you. Tell us your views on the CSA. I guess we know them already, but we might as well go through the motions. Should it now be scrapped? Text us on the usual place, 81189, or email us at gm.tv. And if you'd like to find out how you can get advice and how to complain, not that complain about the CSA seems to do much good, but you might as well, again, go through the motions. Log on to our website at gm.tv.
You never know, John. There might be somebody out there who's had a marvellous...
exactly. We said earlier, let's find someone who's had a happy experience with the CSA. I'd love to meet them. What them so far?
26 minutes past 6. The Education Secretary Ruth Kelly's future looks increasingly shaky this morning. Her department's facing a storm over revelations about the number of sex offenders given permission to work as teachers. So, should she go? We'll be talking to Laura Warren from the National Confederation of Parent-Teacher Associations in just a moment. But first, Labour MP and former teacher Dan Norris is in our Bristol studio. Good morning. Do you think she should resign?
No, I don't. I think calls for her resignation are far too premature before we've heard her report and the outcome of a review. It's quite clearly a very serious problem, but we need to know the facts. It's a very emotive issue, understandably. Parents are bound to be concerned. What really matters is getting to the facts and then being able to make the judgment then. But I am pleased that she, uniquely almost in the history of Secretaries of State for Education, has acted very firmly to say the buck stops with her, that she takes responsibility, and has ordered this review to take place very fast. And as we're hearing in the newspapers, this review's been going on over the weekend as well. So they're leaving no stone unturned to get to the truth, and I'm pleased to hear that.
But surely her position is untenable. Now, as you said, she's done the decent thing. She has said the buck stops here. Well, you know what happens to people who say the buck stops here. Usually they go, particularly in this particular government.
Well, what I've heard, the information I've heard and read about in the last week, much of it has been very ill-informed, I have to say. Having worked in child protection for many years, it's quite clear to me that an awful lot of people are not clear about what's going on. That includes not just opposition spokesmen, but sometimes government people. Sometimes there are things that are not technically accurate. So we do need to hear from this review exactly what's happened. That's very important because there is confusion.
But surely the bottom line is that sex offenders have been cleared to work in schools, and that shouldn't happen.
Well, there's something called the Criminal Records Bureau that was created by this government, and if every head teacher insisted on getting a check done through them first before employing anybody, there wouldn't be any of these problems. That hasn't happened for reasons that I think the review will have to come out about and make clear, and then we can all make our judgment. But I think that we can wait a few days to get to the facts on something that is a terribly important issue. I don't want to move in haste and make further mistakes in the future. Child protection is littered with people moving far too quickly and not taking their time to get to the proper facts and to work out the right thing to do. And I think we can all wait a few days to get to those facts so that really important changes can happen. And I very much welcome the news, if it's correct, that experts are going to make these judgments and that ministers won't. I don't think ministers are in a position to make such decisions, nor should they, in my view.
So you're actually blaming head teachers, really, more than the Department of Education?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that 99.99% of head teachers do these checks. Very few head teachers decide to exercise discretion, which they're allowed to do. But the answer is that if everybody had to have those checks and make sure that they had the certificate that's produced if someone's clear before employing somebody, we wouldn't have anybody working in our schools who weren't safe or wasn't safe to be with children. And that's obviously an important thing to happen. So I think we have to hear what the review says so that we can find out how exactly that's going to be properly enforced.
Dan Norris, thank you very much. Well, Laura Warren, what's your reaction to what Dan was saying there?
What concerns me is that we're getting so caught up in who's been signing these letters of approval, who's going to sign them in the future, who's going to make the decisions, And actually for parents, what they need to know first of all is that here and now, we don't have teachers in school anymore who have records that make them unsuitable for teaching. We need to know who's actually teaching and actually work on actually getting them out of schools so that our children are safe now. All of the suggestions about the future, fine, but parents have already had that reassurance 2 or 3 years ago following Soham and the Bishard report. So we've already had those reassurances. They've been proved to be unreliable. So parents aren't looking for a witch hunt. They don't need to know whether it was this person or this person that signed the form. They need to know that from now on our children are safe in schools.
But it does seem, I mean, what Dan Norris was saying there is that actually that there's a lot of confusion and obfuscation and actually just downright wrong information out there at the moment. So it is very difficult, isn't it? So you support an investigation?
Well, I think an investigation is a natural consequence of these events being highlighted. However, what concerns parents the most is that seemingly, and that may be part of the misinformation, the Department for Education and Skills and Ruth Kelly seem unable to say, yes, we have a list, yes, we know it's these set of teachers, be it 10, be it 110. Whatever that number is, it's too big a risk for our children.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking to us this morning, Laura Warren. Thank you.
Okay.
Time 6:31, let's catch up on the weather.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Tops Tiles, brightening homes, whatever the weather.
Hello, good morning. Bands of cloud coming in from the west, quite a breezy day as well, and that means it's going to be wet. Rain coming across from the west, and it's going to be coming in forms of bands. You can see here some brighter skies on the horizon, but this rain patchy at times, gradually moving its way from west to east, a brighter spell, then more rain to come. So this is the picture this morning. You can see here a dry start for East Anglia, the southeast. Then we have this patchy rain here, not really amounting to very much. Some clearer skies coming in now, and more rain on the way. That means a soggy end today across many western parts of the country. Through this afternoon then, you can see where the worst of the weather is. It's across this western side of Scotland here, the far north as well. Some showers for the far north of Scotland, and in the east, see, mostly bright and dry, but you will see that cloud later. Rather windy wherever you are, 6 or 7 Celsius. Going to turn milder by Wednesday. For Northern Ireland, again, we'll see more rain as we head through the afternoon. And then that rain gradually moving across to the border regions. But this morning, we're seeing that rain clear away. That means some brighter skies as we head further south towards northwestern areas of England as well as northeastern parts. But that rain eventually will be coming in. That means for Russia, it could turn quite wet. The band of rain, which is currently over more western and central parts of Wales, will move out the way, and then a brighter spell of weather before more cloud and rain comes in. And that means this patchy rain gradually moving across the Midlands through this afternoon, cloudy with some damp conditions, heading down towards the southeast as well as East Anglia, where it's a dry start here, and then we'll see that rain coming in through this afternoon. Again, it's mostly light, just making the soil damp from time to time, and then there's a batch of rain coming across for the west country as we head through this evening and overnight. For the Channel Islands, you'll see some patchy rain as well. Tuesday into Wednesday, a better day to come on Tuesday, milder conditions for a time. Despite a cold start, you should see some sunshine in the north, and then sadly return to wet and windy weather as we head through to Wednesday. Here's your summary. For your in-depth local outlook, visit our website, or for a 10-day forecast, call GMTV's Weatherline on 0905 514 0000.
Good morning, it's 6:33, Monday the 16th of January.
You're watching the news hour here on GMTV. In the next half hour, as the credit card bills from Christmas come in, where you can get help if you're feeling drowned by debt.
And you're used to seeing them in HMP in Larkhill. Find out how 2 of the stars from the ITV drama Bad Girls got on in Peru.
But today's top story, there's fresh evidence that the government agency set up to ensure that children of former couples are properly catered for is failing them on a huge scale. New figures suggest that the amount of money the Child Support Agency has not collected from absentee parents has trebled in the last 9 years. But the agency's fate could finally be sealed very soon now. Rachel Harrison at Westminster has the details. Morning, Rachel.
Yes, good morning, John. I think the CSA is probably one of the most hated government agencies. But as you say, there could be trouble ahead because there's a new report that's due out later today, or sorry, later this month, that will suggest that it should actually be completely scrapped. It's been commissioned and run by the Chief Executive of the CSA himself, Stephen Gately. It's going to be given to Tony Blair, and he's going to say there should be change. Now, this agency has been set up in 1993. It was going to be scrapped in 1998, and here we are in January 2006, still talking about the problems, and these figures will give you some idea Why? Because the Liberal Democrats have exclusively given us figures that show that £3.3 billion still hasn't gone to the families that need it most, and out of that, £2 billion is unlikely to ever actually be collected. Now, the Liberal Democrats are pushing hard on this. There's going to be a debate in the House of Commons tomorrow. They're going to ask for not only solutions but answers to some of the problems that families have been facing over the last 10 and 11 years. They themselves want to see the Inland Revenue take control of the situation. And as I stand here today, 300,000 cases still haven't even been processed. So if you're a mother that's waiting for a cheque to come through the post, or still waiting for your application still to be looked at, there could be hope on the way, because it does look like finally the CSA may be going.
Rachel, thank you very much indeed.
25 minutes to 7, let's cross over to the news desk and Amanda. Penny, thank you. Good morning. It promises to be another tough week for the Education Secretary, Ruth Kelly, after reports of more cases of sex offenders working in schools. Well, Gloria De Piero is in Downing Street. Gloria, good morning.
Good morning to you, Amanda. Well, the Prime Minister insists that Ruth Kelly's career is safe. That's despite the fact that she personally cleared a sex offender to work within our schools. That emerged over the weekend. Now, this week, Ruth Kelly will make a statement to Parliament. In that statement, she will explain how she will create a single sex offenders database to stop this confusion ever happening again. She will reportedly strip ministers of their role to vet sex offenders from working within our schools. And she will also tell us the precise number of sex offenders that are working with our schools. Don't forget, we still do not know how many sex offenders are getting ready to go to work within our schools. Now, no one is questioning Ruth Kelly's personal commitment to the safety of children. She is, after all, a mum for herself. People are, though, questioning her competence, and that's particularly important, not just in this case, but she has to get Labour MPs come the spring to back controversial education reforms that the Prime Minister has staked his authority on.
Gloria, many thanks. A man has died following an arson attack which killed his wife and injured their teenage daughter. Alex Cochrane lost his fight for life yesterday, 3 days after the fire at their home in Brooklands in Greater Manchester. His wife died at the scene while their 16-year-old daughter remains in a stable condition in hospital. Police have begun a murder inquiry. Meanwhile, detectives have released CCTV images of the last few moments before the murder of the solicitor, Tom Ap Rees-Price. The 31-year-old was stabbed just yards from his home in northwest London as he returned from a night out with friends. The pictures show him walking through Kensal Green tube station. We've had our fun and now we've got to pay for it. When your post arrives this morning, it's more likely to include the dreaded credit card bills for all that Christmas expenditure. There's already been an alarming increase in the number of people needing debt counselling and advice in the last 2 weeks. One helpline has gone into meltdown when all of its phone lines jammed, with a record number of callers afraid they could go bankrupt. Thousands of nurses are to protest over pay cuts. The Royal College of Nursing wants staff to send postcards to the Chancellor Gordon Brown, saying no to his proposed 2% pay rise. They say the rise fails to take into account the cost of living and is effectively a pay cut. More and more of us, men as well, are going under the knife in the quest for physical perfection. The number of operations carried out by the British Association of Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons increased by more than a third last year to over 22,000. Breast enlargements remain the most popular procedure for women, whilst nose jobs are on the increase for men. A 7-year-old boy has been involved in a 7-mile police chase when he took his parents' pickup truck out for a spin. The child narrowly missed 5 head-on collisions as he weaved in and out of traffic in Tennessee. But at barely 4 feet tall, he did remember to put on his seatbelt and signal. And the time is 6:38. Our next news update is at 7. Here's John and Penny.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks very much. Time to find out how you could win £10,000 by the end of the show today.
Yeah. Here's Keith with the question you need to answer for a chance to win that money.
Which children's TV character is a postman? A. Bob, B. Pat, or C. Peter? You can dial 09068 100 100, or you can text your full name and address to 81149, or you can enter via the website. Lines close at 9 AM and we'll tell you who the winner is by the end of the show.
That would all happen in Lorraine's show, in fact.
Yeah, indeed. Let's find out now what's happening where you are.
Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News from ITV Granada. First today, a man has died in hospital after a house fire in Greater Manchester that killed his wife and left his 16-year-old daughter injured. 45-year-old Maureen Cochran from Brooklands died at the scene of the blaze early on Thursday. Police have launched a murder inquiry after it was discovered the fire was started deliberately. The funeral of a 14-year-old boy who died in Britain's worst cycling accident in North Wales takes place today. Thomas Holland was killed with 3 of his clubmates when a car ploughed into the group in Abergele on January the 8th. His father, John Harland, suffered a broken leg. Yesterday, more than 200 cyclists turned out for a memorial bike ride to remember those who died. 2 men who were charged with manslaughter following the deaths of 4 railway workers are due to go on trial today. The 4 men were killed when they were struck by a runaway wagon at Tebay 2 years ago. Matt O'Donoghue reports.
Mark Connolly and Roy Kennett are each charged with 4 counts of manslaughter. It was here in Tebay in South Cumbria back in 2004 that the 4 railway workers were killed. They were carrying out work on the track when they were struck by a freewheeling wagon which had broken loose from a depot several miles up the line. Despite attempts to stop it, Gary Tyndall from Tebay itself, Colin Buckley and Darren Burgess from Carnforth and Chris Walters from Morecambe all lost their lives. Connolly and Kennett were working in the depot at the time when the wagon broke loose. The trial is expected to last 10 weeks.
More than 200 British holidaymakers who were stranded in Florida after their flight to Manchester was diverted due to a drunk passenger have finally landed in the UK. They were forced off the plane from Mexico when a man began arguing and had to be restrained by cabin crew. They stayed in hotels in Orlando before landing in Birmingham early this morning. Now, the Queen has approved the new cap badge of the North West's new Army Infantry Regiment. All officers and soldiers in the Duke of Lancaster's regiment will wear the insignia. The new badge has been unveiled ahead of the controversial decision to merge the King's Own Royal Border Regiment, the Queen's Lancashire Regiment and the King's Regiment. Well, that's it for now. I'll be back at 7:05. Time now for a look at the region's weather.
Pantene Pro V Winter Rescue. Forecasting a great hair day, whatever the weather.
It'll be a mainly dry but fairly cloudy start to the day with showers expected by lunchtime. It'll brighten up through the afternoon though, although watch out for more rain by this evening. Top temperatures today of 8 Celsius, that's 46 Fahrenheit.
Welcome back. Time 18 minutes to 7. Time for a quick look at the morning papers. Iran warning in The Guardian that if sanctions are imposed against that country, then oil prices are going to rise. Times has a story saying that ministers are considering anyway shelving a planned multi-million-pound scheme to rebuild Britain's crumbling hospitals, and doctors, not surprisingly, upset about that. Another proposal alleged by Tony Blair to stop petty criminals going through the courts, having them dealt with instead by prosecutors and the police. And in the Independent, intriguing environmental story from a scientist saying that, in his view anyway, that climate change is already irredeemable and insoluble problem. Life on Earth climatically will never be the same again.
The Daily Mail continues with the Ruth Kelly story. The Education Secretary, 9 sex offenders beat the system, and they're the ones we know of so far. The Daily Mirror says that it set up a children's charity using the name of one of Britain's vilest paedophiles, and the Charity Commission actually passed it without doing any checks. The Sun, Win It and We Forgive. Only Cup glory can save Sneaky Sven. That's after revelations in a Sunday newspaper yesterday, him talking about various players. And the Daily Express, Miracle Diet halts ageing. This is all about how high carbohydrate, high fibre diets with a little glass of red wine here and there actually stops your heart getting older.
Okay, then I'll stick on the wine. Now then, what can you do to get out of debt if you're overspent this Christmas? Over the last few weeks, financial helplines have been inundated with calls from people who are finding they can't cope with bills from the festive period and the overspend. With us this morning, financial expert Melanie Wright and Robert Jenkins, who racked up almost £30,000 in credit and store card debt in just 3 years. Very good morning to you both. Let me kick off with you, Robert. How did this start? I mean, you presumably at one stage you didn't have any cards at all.
No, we were invited along to our bank for a financial health check, and it was very good. We changed mortgage provider, we reviewed our insurance policies, and had we stopped at that point, we would probably have been more financially stable than we had been for a long time.
But you were given plastic?
We were offered a credit card, and in fact they do have a purpose. You can buy things online, can buy things over the telephone, so we took it. The problem was that your spending patterns are then prone to change. It's altogether too useful.
You became addicted in your own words.
That's correct, yes. For example, you know, if you went to the garage with £20 in your wallet and having filled that the tank of petrol up with that, if you then went into the garage and saw something that you wanted, pay for it with plastic.
Well, you concede with the benefit of mature reflection you were irresponsible.
Yes, indeed, yes.
I mean, £30,000 is one heck of a lot of debt.
Yes, it's very easy to do, sadly. Having got one, I don't know if they share information, but you tend to be bombarded, we certainly were, with junk mail offering others. And as you find it difficult to finance one, you rob Peter to pay Paul, you get another one.
People are bombarded, Melanie, but at the end of the day, no one's forcing them to take out these cards. It's up to them to say no. But to what extent do you think people like Robert have been subconsciously influenced by the fact that debt doesn't seem to have the sort of stigma it used to have, and that bankruptcy even is no longer the burden it used to be? You can get rid of it in 12 months now, can't you?
That's right, it has changed from 3 years, but I think the temptation is the biggest difficulty, and like you say, you take out one card, it's so easy to take out another card, and you're just exacerbating the problem. You're just taking out more debts to cover existing debts, and that's when the problems really start. And it's really that fact that you shouldn't spend more than you're bringing in. So, and it sounds so easy to do, but working out a budget and sticking to that budget, making sure that you're not spending more than you're bringing in every month, is really the only way to stay on top of your finances.
That's prevention,
exactly,
but let's talk about the cure, because that's what we're here for as well. And we've done stories like Robert's, tragically, time and time again. Let's think positively now about what you can actually do, because there is help at hand, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I think that's the biggest point, is to keep talking to people, talk to your creditors. They don't want you to default on the repayments. So if you are having trouble paying your debts, ring them up, explain that you're in difficulties, and they might be able to negotiate a different repayment term whereby you may be perhaps paid off smaller payments over a longer period of time. But the thing is not to take out more credit to try and cover those debts. And there are agencies available, the Consumer Credit Counselling Helpline, to pick up the phone, talk to them. They can sometimes help you draft letters to your creditors and help you negotiate a manageable debt repayment plan.
Where are you at now?
We actually contacted National Debt Line, which is run by the Money Advice Trust, and they're crucially they're free and independent. They are very, very helpful. They're friendly. They're extremely professional, and really when you're in debt, it's like being stuck in a swamp surrounded by predators, and they actually offer you a lifeline. And as a result of contacting them, we're now in the process of arranging a debt management plan, which is best for us. But no matter what sort of debt you're in, they can offer solutions.
And I think definitely to go for an agency that does offer free advice, because there are plenty of debt management companies that charge for this sort of service and it is available free, so definitely go for one.
Well, that's good news, and good to know you're on the road to recovery anyway. Things have taken a turn for the better for you. No, nice to meet you. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. If you are drowning in debt, then log on to our website, gm.tv, for even more help and advice.
6:47, you're watching the news hour on GMTV. This morning's headlines: 1/3 single-parent families are still waiting for their cases to be investigated by the CSA. New figures suggest it'll have to write off £2 billion in uncollected maintenance.
As Christmas credit card bills arrive, a record number of us are calling helplines, as we just heard, for advice on debt.
And it's not just the celebrities who are having cosmetic surgery. More than 20,000 of us went under the knife last year, and that was men as well as women. Now, 3 years ago, the cast of the ITV drama Bad Girls raised £10,000 to rebuild and equip a school damaged by earthquakes in El Sauce, a remote mountain village in North Peru. Well, Bad Girls stars James Gillis and Tracy Wilkinson have been out to see the new school and talk to the people whose lives they've changed, and they're here this morning. Good morning. So first of all, why did you decide 3 years ago to actually do this?
Well, I was sponsoring a child called Jacqueline over there, and I was standing on set with Jack Ellis one morning, and we'd had the magazine through which explained, as they do, you know, 50 quid a month can pay for medicines, £100 a month can pay for schooling for a child, etc., etc., and we realised that 10,000 quid could equip a school, and we just thought that's a sort of a doable figure. That's the sort of thing that you could actually try and do. You know, so many times you think, oh, I'd love to do this, I'd love to do that.
But it's too much.
It's too much, and it seems too much out of reach, and that's impossible.
So you decided to go out and see what happened. So how was it, Tracy?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. I mean, the whole village came out to greet us, and You know, they were kind of, the kids dressed up as Incas and...
dancing going on.
Lots of dancing and lots of speech making and
Is that you,
lots of...
James,
Yeah, that's...
lots of picking.
Having a wife who's a ballerina, she'll be aghast at my dancing skills, that's for sure.
Pretty rubbish. So they treated you as these marvellous dignitaries, of course, because you were.
Well,
fantastic.
they do. They have this wonderful sort of ability to just welcome everybody into the community, but primarily, you know, they're friends. After you go back 3 years later, and all of the same faces are there, and they're like friends. You see people here, and you make friends here, and we forget so quickly, and there's a sort of a way we live. But over there, once you make friends, they're friends, and there's
and also
warmth
because you have changed their lives so dramatically. So tell me what's happened in the 3 years.
Well, James is now king of the Kazis. We've put him up for that because we opened. We had enough money sort of left.
Is that the official opening of the loo?
That's the official opening of the loo.
The official opening of one of the loos.
One of the loos.
Absolutely.
We did quite a few of them. Yep. There you go.
That's the way they do it, is it, over there? None of that cutting ribbons nonsense.
No, lots of Peruvian champagne.
But the beauty of it is that, you know, as Plan point out, you know, you're not the money that we raised, that you give as a sponsor doesn't go to the child, it goes to the community. And all of the projects that Plan do are in conjunction with the community. They say what they need, what they'd like, and it's all worked out that way.
In this case, it was a school with the marvellous loos.
With the loos attached.
Yeah. So is that the end of your association then now with Salsi?
No.
Absolutely not, no.
What's next?
Next is we've got to start fundraising again because we want to put electricity in the villages because on a night they can't study, the kids can't sort of read the books and everything else. And there's also the lamps affect their eyes, it affects their breathing. Electricity to the villages will make a huge difference.
Right. So that's it. Next bit of fundraising. Sorted.
Details on your website, I think.
Details are always on the website, gm.tv, in case you didn't know. But surely you must know that by now. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming in.
Well done to the two of you, and indeed all your helpers and supporters. That's it from the two of us. Fiona and Andrew are here next with GMTV Today.
Oh yes, just before we go, by the way, thank you very much for all the texts and emails about the CSA. John, Mrs. Smith from Taunton in Somerset says sometimes the CSA can get things right.
Fantastic.
They sorted out my claim within 6 months. She is the only one in a
very hard
mass
for a positive
of texts
story
and
about the
emails
CSA
about the CSA.
How many years have we been at? Actually about 8 at least.
Well, it seems forever.
Well
now,
done.
11.2 million people watched the new ITV show Dancing on Ice this weekend. They'll be speaking to Andrea about her slippery performance on Saturday. But she
did well. She got through.
She was fabulous. She looked beautiful. She was like Julia Roberts, only younger.
She was indeed. Looks gorgeous. And they'll be heading off to Sri Lanka for the latest Sunsoap Great Escape.
Before that, the weather with Claire.
Really, Moo, I think you should try Anchor Lighter. It tastes just as good, but it's got 25% less fat than Anchor Spreadable.
One bottle of Buttercup sitting on your shelf. One bottle of Buttercup sitting on your shelf. And because one bottle of Buttercup treats any type of cough,
you'll only need one bottle of Buttercup sitting on your shelf.
Buttercup, one bottle that's tough enough for any type of cough.
When you're standing on the edge of nowhere, there's only one way up, so your heart's gotta go there. This is a song for the lonely. Can you hear me tonight?
Come to a Weight Watchers meeting and watch yourself change. Call 08457 123 000. Join now and register free.
Great pass. He scores! And he goes over to congratulate the hero.
Thought you couldn't afford a widescreen TV? You can now at Cash Converters.
Cash Converters.
Blistex Relief Cream. Sublimely soothes sore, cracked and chapped lips. Can you feel it? Blistex. Bring lips to life.
The best way to say goodbye to weight you don't want is with a calorie-controlled diet.
Adios.
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 But there's a natural herbal remedy that's been traditionally used to help. Try Adios for yourself. What have you got to lose?
You may be controlling your diabetes and your blood pressure, as well as your blood glucose and your weight. But now, leading UK heart doctors recommend that your cholesterol should be 4 or below. Otherwise, you are increasing your risk of heart disease or stroke. Cholesterol can help. Call 0800 056 8692 for your free booklet about diabetes, cholesterol and what to do next.
If juggling your life becomes stressful, Calms is an effective natural remedy that helps you stay in control. Stress, don't let it hold you back.
It makes sense to keep things simple. Money included. That's why we've set up stakeholder saving. For a simple way to start saving, go to stakeholdersaving.gov.uk.
Karen, now you've won a big prize, haven't you, love? What'd your husband say? Oh, you haven't told him.
Gala Bingo, where more people who win go.
What are you doing up there, Moo?
I'm looking out for additives.
Looking out for additives?
Yes, you get them in battery-flavoured spreads, but not in Anchor Spreadable.
Moo, do you actually know what additives look like?
No, but there's a strange thing over there that looks like a cloud with legs.
That's a sheep.
Oh.
What's in your tub?
Are you a romantic, dramatic or sporty dresser? Do you utilise your wardrobe to its full potential? No? Later, LK's Wardrobe Wars will show you how to dress to kill. Plus, Carla experiences the Golden Globe Spa before she's whisked off to a celebrity boot camp. Go on, treat yourself. LK Today later.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Tops Tiles. Brightening homes, whatever the weather.
Hello, good morning now. A wet day to come. You can see here on the satellite picture there's a lot of cloud around and more cloud coming in from the Atlantic, and what that means for us today, quite breezy and also bands of rain moving from west to east. We're seeing some patchy rain in the southeast, another band of rain stretching up across Wales, up towards western areas, northwest England as well as Scotland there, and then some brighter skies to follow, but then more rain coming in through the afternoon into the evening. So this is the way it's sits at the moment. You can see this first band of rain just stretching across central parts of Scotland, down towards northwest England as well as Wales and also the West Country. Now ahead of that, it's a bit damp in places, rather breezy as well, quite a strong wind here coming up from the south, and then another batch of rain coming in for this afternoon across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. Western Scotland this afternoon, you can see the rain across the west there, gradually moving in through the afternoon. Some brighter skies ahead of it. We're seeing some showers for the Northern Isles. Quite windy here, 6 or 7 Celsius. That rain arriving across Northern Ireland through this afternoon, the Isle of Man. Also, the border regions, you will see some brighter skies for a time before the rain moves in. And the patchy rain, which was over the west in the morning, gradually moving across to northeast England through this afternoon. Heading down to Wales, well, again, you will see some brighter weather again for 1 or 2 hours through this morning into this afternoon before the next batch comes in across Pembrokeshire and then gradually spreads across. Some damp weather to come across the Midland region, and for East Anglia, again, it's going to be a rather cloudy day with some patchy rain also for the southeast. Heading down to central southern England as well as the West Country, again, a brighter slot of weather, rather breezy, and then this batch of rain comes in through this afternoon, meaning particularly for some places it could be a bit of a soggy rush hour. This is a picture Tuesday into Wednesday, a better day all round really Wednesday, although we'll see the first batch of rain gradually clearing off the scene, and then on Wednesday more rain comes in across the northwest and it gradually sinks its way southwards, turning very mild on Wednesday into Thursday, and then a bit chilly as we head through to Friday. Here's your summary. For your in-depth local outlook, visit our website, or for a 10-day forecast, call GMTV's Weatherline on 0905 514 0000.
It's been a complete shambles.
And we do everything we can to turn the CSA around.
But it has been and remains incredibly difficult.
Yes, indeed. The men at the top promised to solve the CSA problem, so why are mothers still waiting for over £3 billion in unpaid maintenance? £3,000 million is still owed. We'll talk all about this in a few minutes' time.
No, it's costing us money to sort it out as well.
Well, exactly. It's beyond solution now, it would seem.
Right. Oh, yeah, it's GMTV today,
It's GMTV today.
Yeah.
Morning to you. Start of another week.
It's Monday, the 16th of January, 2006. It's the first time I've said that.
Yeah, well, on the programme today, there are new calls this morning to scrap the Child Support Agency. They've been calling for that for so many years, haven't they? New figures show that the amount of money owed by absent fathers is rising by £30 million a month. The figure is already enormous. Talking to the Minister in charge in 10 minutes' time, and also somebody who's been directly affected by the lack of assessment and everything else that seems...